Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakos, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. I think we're both on at least a quick jaunts home between an awful busy fall event season, which is why we wanted to get together here real quickly.
Yeah. We just did, I did a double duty last week, HR Tech and Workday Rising. I know you kind of did too with Neeyamo. I didn't get to do that personally, but so I thought we could just share, recap what we heard. There's a lot here. This could probably be 2 episodes. The Workday thing could be 2 episodes. It's so long, but we're going to do the best we can to surmise this. And I have screens and notes all over the place. So I will be patient. I'm going to be like clicking and searching and pulling things up and trying to share what I have.
Yeah, usually I'm the fidgety one. So it'll be nice for you to be like, fidgety.
Oh, it's going to be, we're going to be all over the place. I like doing these on the fly because I have so many notes, from briefings. The analysts had some briefings prior to all of this getting announced at Rising. I sneak peeked some of it after the Innovation Summit, the Workday Innovation Summit back in what would be April, I guess. So some of this now is coming to life. We've kind of talked about it before, but we'll get deeper into what it means and all that sort of thing. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to let you lead as usual, especially since we start with HR Tech, and I had to forego that one this year because I was out at Rising. So let's start there.
So here we go. See, I'm already off to a horrible start. Got to find my notes that I had on this. But yeah, I think it's important for people to know that this year, HR Tech and Workday actually overlapped. I think some people think that that's done on purpose. Like if, maybe one, we've had moments where Success Factors had Success Connect and, I don't know, UKG or Dayforce or something was on.
Or the same week.
Across the street, from the Venetian to the Wynn or whatever. But this year, HR Tech fell when Workday Rising did, which was at the Moscone Center in San Fran. And again, these things are planned 3-4 years in advance, often booked at the same place over and over. So some of this is probably unavoidable. I don't think anyone wanted it this way. It put a lot of strain on Workday's team, and they did a great job. I'll tell them that. They brought us a lot of updates before we got there for the analysts. They gave us updates at the event, at Rising, at HR Tech. And then I bounced over. I did 2 days at HR Tech, Monday, Tuesday, and then went over to Rising for a presentation with DailyPay, had some private briefings with Workday, which is a client of mine, and then came back to record for The Source by DailyPay. So, crazy week for everybody.
And listen, I'm normally a fan of the SSOW events. That actually was the same week, so we won't talk about that today. But I had advised him as soon as I knew the dates that could be a rough week for them to make a go of it, and hopefully they relook their fall calendar next year. But we'll skip that one for today.
I know. I heard Rising is going to be a little later in the year, next year maybe something like that. So we'll see. But I'll also be at the EMEA one, so I'll get a deeper event sort of update for you, but this is going to be pretty deep. So let's start with HR Tech. Broadly speaking, I spent a lot of time talking to folks. I really didn't spend a ton of time this year on the expo floor. Mostly was meeting with clients and some new things I haven't seen, and doing a lot of podcasting, a lot of conversations. Julia, one of the things that I tell you, I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but I really love is the fact that more and more I'm going to events all over the world, really. I'm leaving for London tonight to go to the CIPP event in Wales. And I keep finding folks where I'm introducing the show and they're like, we already listen. We're already a listener. Or, hey, my team listens. I know, right? It's really very reassuring. It's almost like I'm kind of, I'm preaching to folks that are already fans, and I love it. So that's very cool. I didn't get to go to the Pitch Fest. That's obviously one of my favorite segments. I had to miss that. I think that happened maybe Wednesday or Thursday. In the past, we've seen some really cool solutions win. Some of them grew up to be big time, HR tech providers. Some got acquired. This year, though, it was won by SonicJobs. Now, I'm not familiar with SonicJobs, but from my understanding, they are solving the problem between, do you know how when you go to it's been a while since I searched for a job personally, but when you go out to say LinkedIn or whatever, and you click a job and then it kind of asks you for some information. Sometimes it'll take your profile, but then you got to jump out to the employer's site and then it's like a whole ATS fill out, and maybe there's another thing you got to fill out. These guys are solving that, right? And reducing a lot of or increasing completion rates and killing some of the dropped candidates. So, another niche solution that who knows what it might become.
Yeah. And listen, as usual, we often see the most innovations in those segments, the startup segments in candidate and recruiting. Still, right? I mean, that's been a theme for years now where
there's still a lot of opportunity there for sure. I mean, I've stayed close to it, just ancillary, just from briefings and whatnot. I'm not a recruiting expert personally. I think if you want to dig into that world, I'd tell you to go and, look at like Madeline Lorano and Kyle Lagunas and Tim Sackett and others. They got a deep, experience set there. So, okay, let's talk about some of the updates that I was still reading these, like, I think on the plane on the way home, I was still reading through all the press releases that were sent to me by folks around the industry. And it was so much, but I picked out a few that I feel like will be notable for our audience. Probably the first one is HiBob getting serious about payroll, finally, kind of a catch up. I've been pushing them for a long time that this was a gap in their platform. They made the acquisition, I believe it was in 24, maybe late 23. They picked up Pento in the UK, right? I think it was Pento. And that really got them, got them started on this path. But now they've turned on US payroll, a major need in order to target into the US further. They've brought in some new leadership for that. And so, really going to be now rounding out the platform with what should have been a core solution in the very beginning.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that as some of the solutions, the new ones are growing up in the market, they either seem to start with payroll or they start without payroll. And it's one of the, deciding factors really about whether they're going to be a great fit for a broad HCM solution, when that's what clients are looking for. So a lot of times those growing and evolving companies, those players, they're just not mature enough yet to cover the space wholly. By themselves.
Well, I think it kind of look, HiBob leaned very hard into the culture sort of employee experience side of things, which I think is very, very cool. But I mean, again, I tell all of these firms, like, you can't neglect the blocking and tackling. I know you want to throw touchdowns. I know you want to do the fancy stuff, but employers, especially in the smaller market, they're just keeping the lights on, right? They're really needing that core HR, payroll, time, benefits. That's the foundational piece of this. And without that, I mean, it kind of sort of, I think it's the problem with payroll, right? It's just not respected. It's just assumed that, it's just payroll. We'll just plug that in later. And even before
payroll and time, which are the super messy things, taking it from the engagement platform and the experience and the culture platform to a rock solid HR and talent platform is also a growth step, right?
Yeah. So I love it. I think it's really cool. Now, that is going to be underpinned by Gusto from a tax compliance perspective. Last mile, right? You kind of expect that in a lot of locals. So we'll see if HiBob pushes into that side of the world. But it probably makes sense to just have a partner, in that case. So
thanks for calling that out.
So congrats to them. That's good stuff. Yeah. And thank you to HiBob for they spent an hour going through this with me and giving me an update. So I really appreciate that. Another one that I just saw pop up, that week that I think is very important is the ADP and SAP getting closer together. And you and I have talked about this privately. Do you want to talk about it a little bit? Because I think you're a little closer with your customers. But my understanding is that this is really the advancement towards S/4HANA, moving the global view customers into the S4, the more future-proof platform for cloud at SAP.
So let me think about it from the HR experience. There's a roadmap, and for those that use the SAP-based platform, Global View, most notoriously, right?
Global. I was going to say, note it's Global View we're talking here.
So it has to do with the whole SAP infrastructure moving into S/4HANA and the cloud environment. So it's quite back end. It's not really something that impacts directly the performance, the features, the functionality of the payroll or Global View tool that you're using, but it is something that needs to happen in order to kind of update and stay with the times. So the way that I see most customers experiencing it is a roadmap item. And ADP says, okay, choose 2026, 2027, or 2028 for us to port you up to your S/4HANA infrastructure. And they're picking, but I think it's fair to say if it doesn't affect your features, it's kind of a back office type thing. And so most practitioners, most HR leaders are like, okay, I'm not sure why I have to do this, but I know I have to. And do I have to worry about anything? What do I even have to worry about? Right. So that's how the practitioner or the leader experiences it, when in fact, there's a whole hairy thing going on the backside. And that's what ADP shouted out, right? A little bit of information on.
Yeah. And I've reached out to ADP to get a little bit more clarity on all this, what it means for them getting closer, because they did mention this to us at Innovation Day. I just put an article on that, by the way, if anyone's interested. I attended ADP Innovation Day. They always kick off this trail of HR tech events. And so I've got that out there. I know you have some thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I have a part too, but I didn't know you had set yours out already. I knew it was ready.
Just went out. Sorry. Yeah, I meant to tell you. It just went out this morning. So that's all set there.
Yep.
But yeah, just to clarify, when we're talking about Global View, for those that don't know, that is actually an instance of SAP SuccessFactors Employee Central.
That's right.
So imagine this being for the enterprise global customer that wants an ADP, deep ADP engagement in this
global
case.
Solution, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's
Where are you
talk
going
about
next.
Yeah, I want to talk about GP. Yeah, GP Gia got an update. Now, I got a sneak peek of this the week before it was released and provided. But basically, GP has gone quite a bit deeper on the agentic side of things. And I will tell you, I find this really impressive. I think this is a very, very applicable tool that anyone could use. I don't care whether you're and keep in mind, Gia is not about EOR.
I was just going to say, we're talking
itself.
Gia, right? Because we've spoken about Gia before.
It's really for global employment compliance all around, right? So if you imagine, I could see a lot of opportunity for them to now take this and they will be selling it standalone. They've actually got pricing out there. If you go out to the GP Gia, and I don't know if we're going to put all the links in this time for all of these, but you go to the website for Globalization Partners, GP, and you can check out Gia. They had a beta that was running for a while.
It's still free to check out, right? You can still check out
I
beta?
think it might still be free, but now they have pricing out there, Julie, which we'll get to. But let's just talk about this first and foremost. So the agentic nature of this is really cool. And so I'm going to give you just sort of a basic use case. Imagine if you were to say, hey, I'm an HR leader, business leader, whatever. I want to enter a market. I want to hire someone. Like, what do I do? Like, what's the rules? How do I play? You could begin to ask Gia these things, and I'd say she, we gender them.
Seems.
Gia will come back. Gia will come back with not publicly available, but certified GP data and information, right? In fact, they give you that at every step of the way, certified GP. I can't remember the actual verbiage. But the point here is it's going to guide you on that and give you the right information to say, okay, here's what you're looking at, help you model that out. And maybe even say, all right, I've made a decision. I like what I see. This is going to work for me. I'm speeding this up. But then you could say, okay, well, help me draft a proper compliant contract for employment. What are the pieces and parts of that? And you can do that. And then it can take further and say, do you want me to draft a job posting? Do you want me to, right? So it continues to sort of nudge you along and do the work for you. But again, in that compliant way where it's almost as if, I think their tagline at first was like having a lawyer in your pocket. It really is. It's like having a lawyer, an HRBP, maybe a finance person, right? Because a lot of times I know in bigger companies, you got to bring together several people if you're trying to go and hire someone, or we've got to move someone into some other legal entity that's not in America. The expat process can get kind of gnarly. So imagine all that, but in a chatbot sort of, not sort of, very much an agentic set of hands to go and actually do these things for you. So I really love this. And what I think is really cool, again, standalone. You can come and use this. You don't have to necessarily be a customer of GP's broader services, but certainly, and could certainly license this and use it in other places. So I think this could be really cool as an embedded solution in platforms that are not necessarily HR, but overlap into other parts of the business. So,
well, I think what gets interesting from my perspective, and we do a lot of work with clients that are trying to figure out what are the tools, what are the services that can be used is in this space, then it's a tech standalone, like you said. If it's kind of in that raw mobility space before mobility was like this broad thing of everybody moving everywhere. And how will HR leaders think about a tool like a Gia that is available standalone compared to something like our friend John Lee and Work from Anywhere, right? Which has services and tools. And so it starts to blend, and that's already been happening. The idea of, am I really selecting a tool? Am I selecting services? And, what is the difference in approach, in decision criteria, and what do I have a mix? And if I have a mix, how the hell do I evaluate that, right?
Yeah. Well, this is consulting and advice in a large language model, right? But right from GP's lawyers and experience and experience set. So, very cool. And even, look, they've shown here that they've had some of the teams reduce their policy management overhead by about 50% and cut the costs and time of compliance by about 95%. So I can see this being very, very beneficial to a lot of folks in and out of HR. And, think about, like I said, business development folks and corp development, just so much that this could be used for. So very cool
awesome
stuff. Like to
continuation
see it grow.
of Gia. Gia's growing up.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if you looked at the pricing. The pricing is public, Julie. I think it's like $2.99 per user per month. What are your thoughts on that? Any reaction to that?
I think, first of all, I'm not surprised it's not a per employee, right? A PEPM, because now you have to figure out. But then it also is directly correlated to how broadly you use it, right? I mean, you have in the mobility space a really finite number of folks. It's usually a small team of experts that do that. If you're going to cut off some of that advanced pre-work, you might think that you would want to deploy that more broadly at the manager level even, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So, and yet there will be, the subscription cost that really is a driver in deciding, well, how much more broadly do I make this available? Is it available only to a shared services team? Who knows what, and then managers reach out there. So that pricing will in fact drive how it's adopted and used in the marketplace for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. Because I'll be honest with you, I think this is a conundrum with a lot of the vendors is what to charge. And I think this, in my opinion, I think it feels right. Based on what I've seen, what I've heard. So, we'll keep an eye on this.
The other thing that's interesting, Pete, is, thus far, a lot of provider AI innovation has not been standalone priced or standalone offered. It's about embedding it in their services. And so I think that's important because, every HCM out there has to decide whether AI is just part and parcel of its embedded platform. And that's the reason right, of buying them and working with them. Or if there really is a market and a value to try to do
right now,
charge for it.
Yeah, right now I'd say it's about 80-20. I'd say most of what you're getting AI-wise in your HCMs is included in your module. And then it's whether or not you want to pick up these other SKUs and things, which I know we're going to talk about Workday.
Yeah,
I think the way they're going about it is very cool.
You have a great point.
Well, the way Workday's going about it, I think, is pretty interesting. I'll share that in a moment here.
Did you have one more news thing you wanted to raise? I was thinking.
Yeah, I did want to just say, I want to say just congratulations to a few of the firms out there that won some of the HR Tech Products of the Year. GPGIA being one of those. Good segue. ADP Lyric, HCM, another one. Again, if you want to check out the update in the roadmap and what's going on there, you can see my article. I'll pop it in the bottom of the comments here, or the show description. Chime won an award as well. Some of the other ones that won was Degreed, Eightfold, and a few that I've just not heard of. So some different ones. So very cool, very cool stuff. Good to see that there were some interesting things getting rewarded, and some of the products that I stay very close to. So
Pete, there's some different one. Listeners out there somewhere going, "Dang it! Why didn't you say my name?"
Oh yeah, well there's at least one on here that's dead to me based on the way they treated me one year, but we'll keep that off air.
Okay.
Yeah. So, listen, you went to Neeyamo's event. I apologize. I did not get to make that at Rising, but I know they had an announcement for some new AI. So
they sure did. Yeah, I will. It was actually at the close of Rising. I think they were capitalizing. They'd done a tour in multi-regions. So I think they started out in I want to say Mexico City, ended up in London. Yeah. So they'd done one in each region and chose San Fran precisely because of the draw of having folks there already for Workday Rising. It was at the last day. They put on a great event. I'm going to first say the highlight for me, and it's always the highlight for me, it's a natural role for me to flow into, was to be able to give some retrospective, specifically on buyer and buyer trends. So HR buyers, with the practitioners and the leaders that are buying technology and services, and how have those trends evolved over the years, and what is the buyer lens and the buyer focus now was how we kind of introduced that. And then my favorite part of all is leading a panel of practitioners. So, that's my world. Those are my clients and the folks that I work with. And so Neeyamo assembled a wonderful panel of 5 different practitioner leaders, some that were more technology focused and some that were more HR focused. On the large end of the practitioner groups, they had Google and Amentum were part of that. And then kind of in the mid-sized space, we had Freshworks and RH and TechWave. And all of those panelists were wonderful and very, very open about exactly what it was that their journeys look like and their top criteria look like going forward. So that was one of my favorite parts. But I think what we really wanted to share today was also that Neeyamo had a bit of its own reveal, right? Or a bit of its own update or information about being a part of the Workday ecosystem now. They framed it as being a part of Workday Go, which I think is, kind of this consortium of folks that are focused more on emerging markets and, less than 500 employee types of populations,
Yep.
which is funny because those might be the populations in scope versus, the fact that sometimes large companies use and deploy to smaller populations, in this case, tail global payroll countries, right? Is kind of Neeyamo's value proposition. So that was the reveal, and they had Workday speakers there as well, kind of talking about this value proposition and overall the Workday Go space. And as Neeyamo just does generally a fabulous job with their events. So it was not only buyers and prospects, but it included others in their ecosystem. And there were a couple of advisors there as well, Tracy McKeeche, and a couple of usual suspects that have other roles in this ecosystem of providers and buyers.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I also know that they announced, they had a product announcement there as well. But let me come back to Go, because I think what the simplest way to explain Go is it's Workday coming down market, right? It's Workday making Workday available, affordable, and more rapidly deployable to firms that don't have a lot of size or complexity. Something that Neeyamo is not a stranger to. They've done this years ago with success factors, right? This sort of turnkey model of being able to rapidly deploy and get people in place. And you're right, the long tail is perfect, and that's Neeyamo's specialty. Because before, I think there was a time, and maybe it still is for some companies, it gets cost prohibitive to roll out something that expensive to 2 to 3 people, right?
Yeah.
Some companies will stomach that. Some companies, they can't, and they can't get the justification. So until they grow, that doesn't make sense. And so I think this is a perfect opportunity. And plus, Workday has to come down market, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more on the Insperity thing too. The other thing, did they talk about Aria there?
Yes, they did talk about Aria, and
the casino, not the casino.
Yeah, it's really cool. It has a different ways for users to leverage AI and to integrate and to interface with their questions and so forth, and really emphasize. They did a great job showing kind of choose your channel of communication with Aria. There's the typical kind of like text box, ask your question sort of thing. There's more a prompted roadmap type of a method. And then, they live demoed the voice interaction with Aria. I will tell you another fun part, because, I'm kind of a global geek. Just as they were doing the voice interaction with Aria, they said, and it'll talk in, many of, up to however many different languages, which isn't quite ready for prime time yet.
Yeah.
But they left that go. So I reached out afterwards and said, okay, I have a personal challenge. If you want to blow our socks off, when you hit the end of that, have your Aria voice, your voice to Aria, kick it in and demonstrate questions in a few different languages. Cause I think that's a little bit, that's flashy and fun for a global solution provider, right? To be able to do.
Yeah, no, good stuff, man. Neeyamo always pushes the pace on innovation. But yeah, this is going to be cool. And I thought the branding was interesting. I said, not the casino, Aria. It stands for Adaptive Real-Time Intelligence Assistance.
I was going to say.
So yeah,
it does stand for something, but I hope never to have to remember those four words in detail.
I know, it's a mouthful, but very cool. Congrats to Neeyamo.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk Workday Rising?
Yes. I know we have a bit here, and we will try to we'll try to get the right mix of detail and not detail.
Let's do this. So look, I did not attend the keynotes. I did not attend any classes. I only attended private executive conversations with the analysts. So we were able to ask our questions about the products and such, and we had private briefings about a week before the event. So we were privy to all of the we had embargoed press releases, all of these things.
This is part of what I love about our collaboration. You always have the sneak previews.
Yeah, I came to Rising already knowing what the surprise was. So, but listen, Workday isn't sneaky about it. They're very, they gave it to us all at the Innovation Day. And I basically told you guys after that. So I kind of have already talked about a lot of this. So now it's really coming to life. But I think there's a couple of things that I want to just kind of go over and talk to you about. Let's talk about probably the biggest, maybe the biggest chunk that we need to focus on, and that is the acquisitions.
Yes.
Workday has made 3 acquisitions in literally less than 30 days. August 14th, they picked up Flowise. August 21, they picked up Paradox. Now, these deals haven't closed. It'll take a little while, but that's the announced date, right? September 16th, they announced Sana. Sana being probably the most impactful, maybe Paradox.
Yeah.
what I would say to you is, and one of the things that they assured us, which I thought was interesting, because there's already some naysayers like, they've got to do all this integration, they got all this work. Actually, they don't. They actually emphasize how integrated these solutions already are in their platform. So let's start with Flowise. Flowise, I'm not super familiar, but basically Flowise is a tool to help you build. Think DIY, agent building, right? In line with Build, Workday Build, in line with Workday Extend, all the things that are doing to give you tools to create agents on their platform with other platforms, specific to you, whatever you need to do, right? They're really, really promoting that. So Flowise is gonna very much be an underpinning to Build at this point. The next one would be Paradox. Now, I won't go into Paradox again. Go talk to some of my talent peers that do that. But basically, Paradox is already integrated into the Workday ATS. So it's already embedded, so to speak. That'll work next to HiredScore, which they purchased, about a year ago, maybe. And those two will become very, very powerful solutions for recruiting and talent and all of that. Now, let's talk about Sana. Sana is pretty interesting. Obviously, a learning solution is what it might be known for. But what is very important here is that it will become the user interface and the user experience for Workday. And that's really, really big. Because what I think they're basically saying to you is, and I think we all have talked about this and know this, is that eventually you're not going to go and interface in the way we do with software. It's not going to matter what's necessarily behind the wall. It's going to be that you're going to conversate, right? We just talked about Ari at Neeyamo. You're going to conversate. You're going to give, actions to, prompts to agentic agents who are going to go and take action. So these three things are very purposeful. I think they're very smart moves, and I think it really fills gaps for Workday, but also propels what they were already trying to do from an innovation perspective. So really, really interesting here. And I think the thing that's notable, Julie, if you want to emphasize this, I was looking into the valuation for Sana, something like $500 million. Workday paid, I heard, like what, $1.1 billion?
Yeah.
Maybe? Did I read that somewhere?
Well, I think
that's a massive jump in
yeah, right.
in premium, right, for its owners. So
capital
wow.
you wish you had before it was acquired.
I know,
But
I know,
you
right?
know, like the way that I look at that, Pete, and I'm sure you do too, is seeing it through the lens of a learning versus seeing it through the lens of my entire UI and experience, is to me what accounts for a big chunk of the gap of what you might look at on dollar-wise in paper and think, how the hell did this even happen this way?
Well, I mean, I think that tells you what Sana is bringing, right? And let me say something too. I think you need to watch Workday, because one of the things that's interesting is they're not just buying these solutions and folding them in. That's certainly, a big driver, obviously, of what they're doing. But look at the leadership that's sticking around, right? The founder from Evisort, I'm going to mess up his name. I think it's Jerry Ting. He is now in charge of their agentic AI, right? He came in by way of the Evisort acquisition, which is a contract AI-enabled contract management sort of solution. I love it. You'd have to go check it out, which really opens up a lot of doors for Workday and different personas beyond just HR. When you think about all the redlining and contracting and all that sort of thing.
Two things that I've seen and heard. First,
so it's bringing a lot of talent, is my point.
Yeah. And to that end, I think folks who have been around in the ecosystem a long time, it's hard to miss the fact that initially there was so much focus on we build everything native, right? But the world has changed. And so, so that has kind of evolved in a very different direction from maybe earliest users. The other thing I would say is I've heard from multiple places, a little bit of confusion and folks that didn't quite clearly understand Paradox and what Paradox does, which is very specific to the recruiting, and candidate space. And Sana. So I've heard those conflated a few times as if I just bought two of kind of the same things. And in fact, they're not really conflated at all.
Not at all.
They're quite different purposes and roles, I think, as they get embedded into the products. So I thought I would mention that as well.
Absolutely. It is, it's very much an AI-enabled recruiting capability powered by Olivia, their, conversational AI. So yeah, no, these are very powerful solutions. Very cool. Very close partners to Workday. These were sort of no-brainers in a lot of ways.
Those are the three acquisitions, right? Which were very pre the event. But any thoughts on that and the expansion of Illuminate and the Illuminate platform?
Yeah. So I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Okay. So Illuminate obviously is the AI, branding for Workday. Yeah. So basically, let me pop over here and give you some sort of feedback on this one. So basically, what they did was they gave us a briefing on this. And essentially what they're saying is like, look, we want to make it easier for everyone to adopt AI, adopt these solutions, right? So they're created what they call a flex credit model. So basically,
that's exactly where I was interested.
Yeah. So all customers will receive completely fungible. You can use them across all of the products in Workday, all of the HR, finance, whatever talent. There's zero procurement process. It's very DIY, but it gives them the ability to fundamentally leverage these credits to sample and use and explore and buy and engage the agentic AI solutions at Workday. And so one of the things that'll come, I think it's going to be in H1, I think it's next year, you'll see them come out with a credit consumption dashboard that'll give you the ability to monitor and control all that, measure the ROI, understand what you have, and fundamentally, access these things. The cool thing, Julie, is there will be a universal rate card for agents with full visibility into how those credits use that. And then, of course, obviously, they'll be added, new agents will be added kind of as and when they expand. But basically what I think you're seeing is that Workday is really trying to put this capability into everyone's hands and very much trying to help organizations navigate their AI transformation and AI engagement. So just more help, I guess you could say, to get, and obviously more product for Workday for sure, but definitely getting people in the game, if you will, much easier. So.
What's really important, I think, about this is, watching it evolve. So as you know, I do a great deal of sourcing work client side. And that includes working with all manner of contracts, including Workday contracts and provider contracts and competitor contracts. And so ultimately, there's no doubt that the credits that are used here as flex credits will make their way into contracting in some way, shape, or form. And so we'll be watching for that and identifying exactly how that might happen.
Well, they're going to give every customer a certain amount, and then customers can buy more. So it's honestly very direct. I'd be kind of curious to see if they would need help having them, having someone help them determine that. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be very much, we know our strategy, we know what we need to do, here are the solutions that we want to bring in. It sounds like Workday is going to make it very consumable. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe they're making that easier.
It also means probably negotiable. I'll just slip that in there. Just like there's training credits and other credits, or how many user credits you have and those sorts of things. So there's the potential for that, and I'm positive that hasn't played itself out yet. But there's a lot of different things in these relationships that make their way ultimately into your contracts and renewals. So
it's a good point. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. So just to highlight some of the agents that they released too with Illuminate, right? Some new business process co-pilot agent. I thought that was a cool one that really kind of helps you implement, configure, and set up your business processes. You've got a document intelligence agent for contingent labor, which is great for Venly. Employee sentiment agent. I thought that was already there, but maybe that's new because it's agentic. Job architecture agents, performance agents. Really, really very cool. And what I think is really interesting is, Workday their executives talked a good bit about how them bringing so much to market so fast and accomplishing so much is a lot to do with AI and the way they're using AI internally and really moving things through and getting things done. So very, very cool. Julie, I thought it was interesting. A couple little key facts here. I want to go into a couple more things with them, but I picked up a couple of interesting facts.
Okay.
So I think they said, it looked like they were saying that I think it was a year ago, they had around 700 partners, now 1,300. So it just goes to show you that Carl's point of view on doubling down on their partner network and how important that is. Obviously, much of the sector-specific agentic stuff is coming from some of those. We saw that a while back.
Right.
And look, man, they've gone in 5 years, right, from 45 or so million users to now 75 million. It's pretty impressive, right? And in that time frame, gone from around 200 billion in transactions to $1 trillion in the last year. So a lot of growth on the platform is, I guess, what we're saying here.
Yeah.
So, okay, I want to talk about a couple more things. Let's talk about the data cloud. This is very important. Shout out to Holger Mueller, who was pushing everybody about their data lake. Finally, we've got a data lake, and so very, 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 very big stuff, right? So the new data cloud approach. I'd say that I feel like everybody's got a data cloud now, but really what they're doing is unifying all the data solutions within their world and creating a data lake for you to pull off of to create your, what they're doing in their agentic world, but also to pass things back and forth to partners and solutions that are using your data as well. So they also announced some key partnerships there with Databricks, Salesforce, and Snowflake. And I think one of the key things is it is not a zero copy, it is a zero copy approach. It's not about just sort of copying your data and moving it. It's literally passing it back and forth, through integration. So you're talking about a much more dynamic way of using your data, all centralized off of the data lake and the data cloud. So I just think, really sharpening the tool here to get everything underpinned, if you will, for more AI empowerment at Workday.
Yeah.
Along that same lines, when you start to think about how much work is happening, like Julie, we talk about this a lot, right? Like take our example, we beat up on leaves management all the time, but how much of that goes on outside of HR, like outside the HCM, right? I mean, it's happening in Microsoft and in facilities, softwares and other places. So obviously Workday is trying to do more to get closer to folks like Microsoft, where so much of us are doing a lot of our work. Copilot is present. We're using many of their solutions across all types of users, right? Whether it's Teams or Word or whatever. So it only makes sense that they absolutely start to handshake and connect and again, Salesforce, your ServiceNows, all of these are going to need to have very tight integrations and very good cooperation, if you will. Competition.
Yeah, I thought they did a nice job. Folks had heard, about Billy Idol's appearance and some of the day one, hype was all around the Enter ID and some of these broader, connectivity and data sharing mechanisms. So it was very much a part of, just the general, all people, listen to what we're saying here. We're connecting everywhere we can.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree. Okay, let's talk about, I think we already kind of touched on Build, but let's just talk about that again. Workday Build is literally the way in which clients, partners, and Workday could build solutions. And that's where, AI solutions, that's where Flowise is going to come into play, give you that low-code agent builder capability. They've got deeper AI developer products now, giving you more capabilities around their agent gateway, which basically provides APIs to connect to other agents. And then, of course, like I said, the data cloud, very, very key here right now with the data lake to help power all this. And of course, you've got don't forget about your agent system of record, which was announced a while back to help you kind of manage all this in the same way. It's almost like your HCM for agents, right? I wonder if they you can performance management in there someday and be like, hey, you're saying the wrong thing here to people, whatever. You can coach and counsel.
Starting to see them showing up in org charts, Pete. I mean, places, so.
Yeah, I was just kidding. I'm not. There's no performance management that I know of in the agent system of record, but I mean, what are we talking about, right? At some point, right? You're gonna have to manage these things. Who knows, right? We've already had one vendor a while back make what I thought was kind of a marketing play, talking about giving them personnel records, which could get interesting on an EEOC report when you start sending those in, right, and telling people you got these workers on your platform. But anyway, that's a funny talk for another day.
Is wellness one that was on your bit? Because
they announced that a bit back, but yeah, do you have an update on that?
Well, no, I think maybe some folks, especially in the total rewards ecosystem, were expecting a bigger splash. Obviously, there's been a lot of advancements in this space, some early participants, and just everything to do with kind of how that ecosystem is evolving, how the integrations, might shift eventually from Cloud Connect for third-party benefits, Cloud Connect for benefits are changing. So there's been announcements all along the way. And I think if you're looking for something big, you're looking to hear it at Rising, right? And see how much of a big splash.
Yeah. I mean, look, they announced wellness a year ago, right? And so what I think you saw at Rising this time, at least from my purview, was more clarity around who the partners were that were going to fill that, right? Yeah. Shout out to Chime. They were one of the ones I believe added. I know it's like the Unums and the, some of these other health and you're right, total rewards sort of side of things. Someone asked me what that was, like what the wellness exchange was. And I said, well, it kind of reminds me of a hybrid between the Workday Marketplace, but purely for wellness and GPC,
and
right?
The global payroll,
certified, right? Certified connectors to carriers and providers that will enhance both the experience, the data flow, and obviously going to be, I'm sure, agentic connectivities there as well. At some point, you think about benefit decision making for both the employer and the employee. So lots of opportunity there, but I liken it a little bit to the strategy of GPC. Only it's more Global Payroll
That's
Connect.
Right. That's right.
Only it's more so than just an integration.
Yeah,
In that
for
case.
sure. So
yeah.
much sought after, I would say. And I want to say, just related to that, because I did a couple of sessions that were focused on Workday Ben Admin, right? Which is part and parcel of the HCM solution. So a lot of companies, you have it, whether you choose to use it or you don't use it is a whole different thing. And so I think what we've seen across the marketplace is that, originally maybe it wasn't thought of as something that scaled for large employers. But of course, it's been evolving not only in its own native capabilities, but through partners like Strata and Naya. And so I did a couple of sessions that were very well attended by large market and registered for by large market folks. I actually think we'll see if we can put out a special, episode that provides that as one of our podcast extra specials, and talk specifically about what that's looking like and how some of that Ben Admin offering is advancing, with and without the use of different partners in the ecosystem. So, so look for that. But
yeah, absolutely. We should. And I agree. Let me maybe give you some other sort of side notes that weren't maybe made super public, but I'll just kind of run down a few here. So on the, let's talk the partner side of things, right? I had a nice meeting with the Insperity team. As you know, Workday has teamed with Insperity, one of the top four, I guess they would be the four biggest PEOs, to really power their future with the Workday platform. So fundamentally, and I know we've talked about this, so I won't beat the drum, but Insperity is really going to become the down market SI, premier SI for the Workday platform. So that's coming. You should see that coming more developments on that in 2026.
SI, yes, but also SI paired with the services, right? Because they are a PEO in their own right. And so
of course,
folks that need services in that respect are definitely looking at that as a
I was being a little cheeky. I was being a little cheeky. No, you're right. Basically, Insperity is fundamentally, and again, I wrote an article on this over a year ago. You can go read it over on Payroll Influences. But fundamentally, what Insperity has done is they're saying, listen, we're maturing and matriculating clients we want to retain. We're maturing them, we're growing them, we're staying with them, but we can't continue to serve them with our technology. Very down market, they'll keep their existing tech, but further up market, it's going to be Workday. A multi-tenant instance of Workday at Insperity, and fundamentally the service enabling technology. So very interesting. There's still the jury still needs to is out on how this is gonna play out from a pricing perspective. But I think Insperity, again, they're going to have to become literally the down market premier SI.
That's right.
By way of their own service enabling tech. But I was being a little cheeky with that one. Shout out to DailyPay. They went deeper with Workday. I know they've got a very embedded relationship now for earned wage access and sort of the go-to there. So that was really cool. Back to wellness. I want to give you kind of a quick update. I'm just running through my notes on the pre-events here, updates. Workday Wellness is obviously generally available for clients. It has 50 partners right now for well-being. We mentioned some: Chime, Cigna, Aflac, Voya, Unum, you name it. So all of that is growing. Again, those are going to be more in there. Payroll, the payroll agent, which they've already put out back in I think that was early this year, maybe. That's already live. We've got early adopters using that. Payroll for Ireland, live in GA if you're interested in that.
Thanks,
Equifax, I believe, is a part of helping them with some compliance elements there. And then New Zealand. New Zealand is coming, which will pair up nicely with Australia, which was announced came out last year, I believe it was, and now already has customers and doing well there, thriving. So that's really great. Also,
did you have a date associated with New Zealand?
New Zealand, I didn't. I think that's 26, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I believe it's 26 sometime. I could be wrong on that, but it's on the way. GPC. Workday said they've got hundreds of customers, so slowly folks are kind of pouring into that new integration, bidirectional global payroll integration. The payroll agent is using GPC to help obviously manage third-party payrolls is an option. So that's there. And now 35 partners. I think that grew from 27 at the Innovation Summit they had for global payroll, and 20 are now GPC certified. So that's tripled since the first of the year. And don't expect to see that slow down. You will eventually see all of them get there. And anyone that wants to engage with Workday will likely need to eventually build that out. So Very cool. Lots there, man. Workday's a lot of buzz for them. Just so much going on. I mean, there's just enough talk around these acquisitions alone that I think that'll be flowing around for a while. And certainly just so much here for people to consider and think about as they continue their transformation journeys.
That's right.
Yeah. Is that all of our updates? I think that's,
I think what we planned for today. We know we have more that we're picking up, but we thought we'd focus on the big ones. And as usual, if it makes your head spin, trying to figure out how to keep track of that, hopefully this is helpful. And you can always go back to some of the different news events. I know, Pete, in your show notes, we're pretty good about highlighting which providers, and a little bit about the innovation so that people can search back and find what they're looking for in the news events.
Right. And don't just listen to us. Listen, there are lots of analysts. I love John Reed over at Diginomica. Shout out to those guys. Brian Somer. They do some great work on the ERP. Can talk a little bit wider than just HR. I try to just focus on that that's enough for me, for our audience. But I would tell you, go look at Diginomica's write-ups. I always love Bonnie Tender's stuff over at Raven Intel. They're playing on the ERP side with all of the major players and kind of comparing and contrasting. So if you're in that space or you're a Workday customer, certainly go and check out some of those other points of view. And there's some other great podcasts and shows I'm probably missing, but those are some good ones. And stick and stay. We're just starting off the trail. It's only September 24th. I've got until Christmas of this every week until Christmas almost. And I know you're going to be, where are you going to be, Julie? What are your events?
Well, actually, what's coming up right now in the immediate future is the Conference Board has an HR event in the New York, New Jersey area. And in fact, if anyone is listening and would be interested in attending that, please reach out to me and we might be able to figure out how to make that happen. So that's the first one. And then, things do kind of settle down a little bit from the HR side of the house, from the practitioner side of the house, as you hit the end of the year. But that gives me time to see and spend time with clients, which is my first love. So so most of my shuffling around will be digging in the weeds with client work.
I know. Yeah. Well, when you come to Atlanta, we need to get together, do a live episode for sure. We never get I didn't even get to see, I think I saw you for 4 minutes.
I know.
I think
and you forgot my stickers.
I know.
Whenever you all who are listening are somewhere where Pete or I are, typically we have stickers, fun podcast stickers. So
can I tell you something?
Ask us about them, but
secret time here. I was telling my wife this right before I left. I was like, what's funny is when I travel, as an analyst, we travel hard through spring and then it's like dead fall for summer, which is great. We do some work and then it goes hard for fall, right? All the updates. And I told my wife, I said, every time I take these little 4, 6, 8 week breaks from traveling, I get out of traveling shape. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, I go to the airport disheveled. I forget things, whatever. Guess what I did, Julie?
Oh,
Not
I
only
know
did I forget your stickers, I left the house with not a single wire.
Or glasses. Didn't you tell me no glasses either?
I had the glass case, no glasses. I could not charge anything. I was living on a prayer the whole time, borrowing plugs. Thankfully, I have fairly, shout out to Apple. I have great products and they have good batteries. I didn't have to do it a lot, but that was a test of endurance in some ways.
We had the same issue. I also had an issue with my power cord. And, my laptop, the actual power cord thing doesn't work. So you have to charge it through the FireWire or one of these other little flat looking things, right? And so thank you to the airport soundbite, I think is what the store is called, because the woman there actually jerry-rigged a couple of things together that would allow me to power up my laptop while I was without.
Great.
So,
well, here's another little fun tip. If you walk out into the expo floor, I guarantee you'll find a free wire, at least for your cell phone. And they normally have all the tips on it. So you can kind of like get whichever one fits you universally.
That's right.
And thanks to lawsuits in Europe, now we all have the USB-C on the Apple. So no more lightning cords. So you could always scavenge one there. And some of these events actually have charging stations if you can find a minute to plop down and do that. But well, look, I'll be out there. I'd love to see everyone. I'm going to head over to the CIPP event, the Chartered Institute of Payroll Professionals.
That's right.
ACE event over in Wales. I know, right? I'm going to try to record a little bit while I'm there. I got some lapel mics I'm going to bring and see if we can get some folks to have a chat with me. I've got a few meetings there as well in town. And then, then it's going to be Dayforce and UKG and some others. So we'll have plenty of road updates, show updates here coming.
That's right.
Very soon. And lots of great episodes. We've got a lot of great episodes, Julie, coming. Some good conversations. I'm trying to curate a few things that I feel like are hot right now. One thing I want to do, Julie, if you don't mind, at some point, I want to do an episode where we just kind of talk sort of like what's in the news, but like not product updates and vendors, just kind of like, is it real? You know what I mean? Like there's some of the, I read a couple things this week and I'm like, is that real? I had to click it and I'm like, wow, that's real. So I thought maybe you and I could pick 3 or 4 and we could riff around on those and get our opinions.
I would love to. I save those and I try to incorporate them into my newsletter each month, at least a few of them. And you and I have both talked about the one that came out that was quite the eye opener, or the sound bite, which was around the MIT study that said 90% of folks trying to embed AI on their own. We're having a time of it, and it wasn't the most successful. So those types of tidbits are really fun. Oh, and you stymied me with the last one about how far do you commute? From one corner of Malaysia to the other, some crazy thing, some crazy story you'd seen. So let's do some of those.
Yeah, we will. I'm gonna figure out something we can call these podcasts. Like, is it true? Is it possible? You know what I mean? I don't know. Whatever. We'll figure it out. But
how about this too? Looking for. While I love our "How did you get into HR?" I think we've pretty firmly established that nobody goes into it or tries to get there from the very get go. Payroll, at least, anyways. So we might need to start to think about some different quiz to incorporate, or some different angle to incorporate into our show in the coming year. Maybe there's some other conversational thing we can use that would establish something we know about ourselves, which is we get here by accident, and then there's no getting out. Hotel California.
We got to figure that out. I saw some influencer the other day say something about how they wanted to be in HR since they were a kid. And I'm like, shut up. Shut up.
There's one in the world.
Stop it. Like nobody saw this coming, man, as a career. I don't care who you are. I mean, maybe now, maybe, my kids, I think beat them over the head with it.
There's certificates.
I teased my daughter for a long time in college. She has a psychology degree. She went to UMass Lowell, and I teased her for a lot. You're going to be an HR lady. But anyway, she's not.
All right. Well, let's give it a wrap. So I hope we did a good job getting people caught up on what you may or may not have missed, because you couldn't be everywhere at once. And so we try to do our best to cover.
Yeah. I apologize for the fire hose of information. This is a lot to really pack into 1 hour. We really probably needed 2, but wanted to give you an update because there's just going to be too many to come that we wouldn't catch up. So thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you listening. And as always, like, share, subscribe, whatever you can do. Rate us if you can. And we'll be back with more content very, very soon.